All right, mortgage term tonight that I want to go over with you is closing costs. This is one of the top questions that I get asked is what are closing costs and how I break those down for my consumers. All right, so what I do is I put together 4 different buckets when it comes to the credit scoring for them. All right, so I want to walk through those really quickly with you guys. So number 1 is your fixed closing costs. So fixed closing costs would be the standard stuff that we need to do to get your loan approved. So an appraisal, a credit report, title work, recording, processing, underwriting, all of those types of things are the standard, or what I call fixed closing costs, in order to get your mortgage done. So we got to verify the titles are clean and clear. We got to do an appraisal to confirm the value. We got to pull a credit report to make sure your credit's sufficient and figure out what your debts are. We got to record all the documentation to make sure that you are now the owner of the property and we have the mortgage recorded properly. So all the standard stuff I call fixed expenses. Then that is the standard stuff that you're always going to pay no matter what mortgage that you do. Bucket number 2, if you will, is points or origination points. All right. Essentially what this means is if you want to get a better interest rate than what the lender is offering, you could potentially pay some upfront money, points, in order to buy down that interest rate. All right. So if the street rate is X, you could pay money at closing to buy it down below X. All right. Before you do this, it's very important that you're reviewing a mortgage option report and comparing the 2 reports side by side to figure out what is the best way to spend your money. My goal as a loan professional is to make sure that you're spending your money wisely. Yes, that interest rate is better, but how much does it cost you to get that interest rate? If you're paying points, you need to evaluate that for every mortgage to make sure it makes sense. All right, bucket number 3 are inspections. All right. Inspections are something that you're going to put into the purchase agreement and tell the seller that you're going to be doing some inspections to protect yourself as you go through this home buying journey. All right. So typical inspections, different areas have different inspections. Where I work in the Midwest, we do home inspections, whole home inspection. We do radon tests and we do termite tests are the standard ones. You could have someone come in and do a furnace check if you wanted to. Maybe there's a well or a septic. You might have to do well and septic inspections and so forth. So the inspections are the 3rd bucket of the closing costs for us. So repeating, we've got fixed expenses, we've got points, and we've got inspections to protect yourself as a consumer. All right. And then bucket number 4 when it comes to the closing costs is what we call prepaid expenses. All right. Or escrow account startup. They're kind of the same thing, but in the mortgage world, they're called prepaid expenses. All right. So there's 2 main things when it comes to prepaid expenses. Number 1 is escrow account. So starting up your escrow account with taxes, insurance, and possibly the private mortgage insurance. All right. So when we close on your loan, we've got to look into the future, figure out when your bills are going to come due for the taxes and the insurance. And then we're going to put money at closing into that account. So that way, when those bills come due, there's enough money through your escrow account. If you don't know what your escrow account is, make sure you go out to mortgageclassroom.com and look at the what is an escrow account definition video. It'll walk you through exactly what that is, and we'll help you out with that escrow account. So at closing, the 4th bucket of closing costs is prepaids. So we've got to fill it up with some taxes and the insurance, possibly some PMI. We've also got to pay that first year of homeowners insurance for you to pay the first 12 months of your insurance. All right, so let's recap closing costs for you. Number 1 is fixed expenses. Appraisal, title work, recording, credit report, processing, underwriting, closing, all of the standard things that we need to do in order to get your loan put together. Those are called your fixed closing costs. Bucket number 2 is points. If you want to pay additional money up front to buy down that interest rate, we can do that. But make sure you're getting a mortgage options report that compares those 2 scenarios side by side to make sure you're spending your money wisely at closing. Right now, with interest rates so good, buying points and paying those down Probably not the best thing to do, but definitely need to review that for your individual scenario. Bucket number 3 are inspections. All right. So like we said, in that purchase agreement, you may choose to do some inspections. If you do, that will be an additional bucket of your closing costs as far as costs due at closing. Prepaid expenses is number 4. So starting up that escrow account for your taxes, for your insurance, and paying that first year of insurance premium is in that prepaid buckets. All right, so do you have to pay all of these closing costs as part of this process, or can someone else pay them? Answer is yes. You could pay them as the buyer. You could ask the seller to pay them through your purchase agreement called seller paid closing costs. Or there's also an option called lender paid closing costs, where the lender picks up all of those expenses. So if you've got questions around who pays for the closing costs, reach out to me today and we'll talk through buyer paid expenses, seller paid closing costs, and or lender paid expenses and closing costs if you want. So closing costs are a big piece of the puzzle when we're putting the mortgage together. And I want to make sure that as we go through this educational journey with you, that you've got all of the questions that you need answered as far as the closing costs. So reach out to me today. And if you've got additional questions like we talked before, make sure you're going out to mortgageclassroom.com and reviewing all 20 or so videos that I have out there to get your education started. So again, that mortgageclassroom.com is a YouTube channel full of videos to be able to get you started. And if the time is right for you to get pre-qualified, definitely reach out to me at timlammortgageteam.com. That is where you can begin this journey of getting pre-qualified and starting an online application there. And then we will schedule a mortgage planning session where we'll sit down face-to-face and join together and get all of your questions answered as we migrate through this lovely process of buying a new house.